Well, here we are, year 7. Every FNAF release from August 8th, 2020 to August 7th, 2021. Oh boy, like, comment, and subscribe. When left in darkness, rage festers. Years of frustration with his family accumulate in a loathsome vacation for Bob, who plots a sinister prank to frighten his wife and kids. Bunny Call, released on September 1st, 2020. Something cool about Bunny Call, this is Scott's favorite story. Supposedly, this is based on true events. Scott went to a summer camp with his kids and he signed his kids up for a panda call, which meant clowns will come in and scare his kids early in the morning. Scott regretted doing this and took a walk outside, feeling like there were clowns out there after him. But then when they came to Scott's cabin, Scott just said no and the clowns left. In the story, Bob signs his kids up for a bunny call, where a bunny will scare his kids and wake them up between 5 and 6 a.m. Bob regrets doing this, so he takes a walk outside and is scared. Ralphio the bunny is nearby. When Ralphio shows up, Bob says no, but Ralphio tries to get in anyway, trying to break in, using the window or the doors or going through underneath the cabin. He really wants to scare Bob's wife and kids. It's crazy. I think Ralphio was a cool character. It was not a long story, but it was a fun read in my opinion. I really don't have much to say other than that though, but it was a fun one. When left in darkness, rage festers. Matt redirects the residual anger over his many failed relationships into a video game and ends up birthing the horrible consequences. In the Flesh, released on September 1st, 2020. Yeah, we are talking about this one. For those of you who don't know, In the Flesh has been the most memed on Fright story, and here is why. This story is about a male game designer named Matt who is mean to people around him. He tortures Springtrap's AI in his newest video game, Springtrap's Revenge. And as punishment, Matt gets pregnant with Springtrap's baby. Matt literally cuts open his stomach and a baby Springtrap comes out. 0 out of 10. Matt should have given birth through his dick. Never mind. Family-friendly channel. But yeah, in case you ever sat down and wondered, is male pregnancy canon to the FNAF universe? Well, there's your answer. Apparently it is. Although what I don't think a lot of people realize about this story is it seems to be about sexism. Matt is mostly rude to women, rather it was his ex-wife back when they were married, his date, his friend's date. Anyone who is a woman is pretty much the kind of person Matt is usually not very pleasant towards. We also learn about his many failed relationships in the past, and Matt is super petty towards his exes. So what happens in return? He goes through something women go through. Matt feels many pregnancy symptoms throughout the story: fatigue, nausea, vomiting, hunger, bloating, a craving for raw meat even. The foreshadowing in this story is actually pretty funny. So, there you have it everyone. Don't be sexist, or else Springtrap will get you pregnant. I want to ask why Springtrap of all characters was chosen for this story, but I don't think any character would have really worked that well anyway. But I thought this story was funny. When left in darkness, rage festers. In room 1280 of Heracles Hospital, something evil is keeping a man alive. A man with gruesome burns all over his body and an iron will to live. The Man in Room 1280, released on September 1st, 2020. Yes, finally, the real stories of frights. The Man in Room 1280 is about a priest named Arthur. Arthur believes there is good in everyone, no matter who they are or what they might have done. Arthur is visiting a man inside of Heracles Hospital. Heracles is the son of the Greek god Zeus. His name is Heracles, by the way. Disney used his Roman name in Hercules. Stupid Disney. They got a lot of things wrong in that dumb movie. Anyway, the nurses at the hospital are convinced the patient in room 1280 is the embodiment of pure evil itself. This man has burns all over his body, and his face is unrecognizable. You can even see his bone. The fact this man is alive should be impossible. This man, who was brought into the hospital when he was found in the burned down remains of Freddy Fazbear's, the story does not actually say that, but it's obvious that's the case. Basically, this man is everyone's favorite FNAF villain, William Afton. We learn what happens to him after the events of Pizzeria Simulator. The spirit of one of his victims, Andrew, is keeping William alive. Andrew is pissed at William for killing him, so he keeps William alive, but traps him in a coma, where William is forced to face the monsters he created over and over and over again. It's an endless nightmare. It's Ultimate Custom Night. William's coma is literally Ultimate Custom Night. That game is happening during this entire story. The nurses try to kill William multiple times, overdosing him, smothering him. Nothing works, because Andrew will always harm any nurse who tries to kill William. Andrew runs around Heracles Hospital in an alligator mask as he tortures William. William obviously wants out of this. He doesn't want to be tortured in Ultimate Custom Night anymore. But his only option for escape right now is death, which may sound nice because he will get out of his coma, but William knows exactly where he is going when he dies. William will be in hell. It's not confirmed, but I think William actually has been in hell before after being spring-locked, and then he came back to Earth when FNAF 3 happened. I think it would explain how William knows hell exists and why he's so terrified of it. There's one part where Arthur is talking with the nurses, and they mention hell. Then suddenly, William's monitors go crazy and beep uncontrollably. They all together make a loud screeching sound. William is terrified. William begs Arthur to bring him to Fazbear Entertainment Distribution Center. It took Arthur a lot of fighting with the hospital, but he managed to be able to do it. Arthur began to pray for William Afton. He wanted to help William. Arthur believed deep down William is not a bad man, that he is a good person on the inside, that William just needed help. Arthur brought William to the distribution center and took him to this area full of Fazbear products like toys, animatronics, devices, and much, much more. William was so happy that he manipulated another person. He then blew up, and now William was able to enact his plan. William attached his soul to everything in the distribution center. A bunch of the antagonists in the Fazbear Frights, Fetch, Plushtrap, Ella, Foxy, and Ballora, were all possessed by William Afton. William had split his soul across all these different animatronics and toys to make sure his soul will live on and torture others so he can stay on Earth and make a name for himself. This was how William figured out immortality. Arthur was played. He was so convinced that William was a good person deep down that he was taken advantage of. Arthur learned that he was wrong. There is no good in William Afton. William is just rotten to the core, pure evil, and he has no good in him. Never did. I love seeing the aftermath of Pizzeria Simulator, and I love how William's motivations finally come full circle to line up with the novels. First, William just wants to manipulate the kid spirits. Then he becomes Springtrap and wants to embrace that. Then he wants immortality when he realizes how fragile he is. FNAF 1 and 2 is William controlling his family. FNAF 3 and 6 is William's Springtrap phase. The Fazbear Frights is William's immortality quest. Believe it or not, the man in room 1280 is still not the ending to William's story. I think Scott cooked when he made William Afton. He cooked hard. He cooked so well that the other villains we got after William, Eleanor, and the Mimic, while I do like them, they aren't as good as Afton. My friend Maitani says all the time that William Afton is his favorite character in all of FNAF, and I can see why. When you look into his character, and I mean really look into his character, he's a very interesting villain. Small teaser, but I do plan on making a character study video on William. I don't know when that will be, but it is a future plan. Let's continue. Haunted by the past, to avoid confronting an ugly truth, Noel falls prey to a monster that punishes past transgressions. But in the unpredictable world of Five Nights at Freddy's, sometimes the past can take on a life of its own. Blackbird, released on December 29th, 2020. This is a cool story. It is about a college kid named Noel who has a bit of a history bullying others. He pisses off his friend Sam when he talks about his past. However, Noel and Sam create a character called the Blackbird. A blackbird, duh, that once you confess your worst sins to it, the Blackbird will punish you in the worst possible way. Noel talks about to Sam how he used to be a bully. Then, not long after, Sam gets hit by a train. Then the Blackbird begins to come after Noel. It starts with Noel seeing black feathers everywhere. Then later, Noel tries to sleep, and he is in a sleep paralysis-like state as the Blackbird hovers above him. The Blackbird tries to kill Noel as he sleeps. The only way Noel is able to get the Blackbird to stop is by finding the girl he bullied and apologizing. It even makes Sam come back to life somehow. It's crazy, but that's the Blackbird story. I like it. It's very demonic. The ending is a little anticlimactic though. Growing weaker by the day, 9-year-old Jake looks back on the time before he was sick, imagining life as if he were well again. But in the unpredictable world of Five Nights at Freddy's, sometimes the past can take on a life of its own. The Real Jake, released on December 29th, 2020. This is actually one of the best FNAF stories there is. It's not about horror or supernatural or mpreg. It's about a young boy named Jake who, for the past few years, has had a brain tumor. The tumor has been growing more and more, and Jake has been on chemotherapy, but he's just been getting weaker and weaker. Jake's mom is dead, and his dad is overseas. Jake lives with his babysitter, Margie. Margie is shown to love and care about Jake a lot. Jake has another friend, Simon, the mysterious voice who talks to Jake through his cabinet. He always wants to know what Jake was up to, not chemo Jake, the real Jake. Jake would go on and on to the voice about all the things he wants to do after his tumor is taken care of, like go to the arcade, eat pizza, go to the movies, you know, kid stuff. Jake didn't know who the voice was, but what we learn is it was actually his father speaking to Jake through a walkie-talkie. Margie would listen in on all the stuff Jake said, and she would decorate a doll inside Jake's cabinet to make it look like it did all the stuff Jake had talked about doing that day. Therefore, whenever Jake has beaten his tumor, he can open the cabinet and meet Simon the doll. It was meant to be a gift for him when he pulls through. Unfortunately, while fighting overseas, Jake's dad, Evan, had been killed. Jake's chemotherapy had only been making him feel more sick, and not too long after his dad died, Jake passed away as well. The tumor won. Margie is devastated. She wasn't related to either of them, but she cared about Evan, and she loved Jake so much. I'm hesitant to talk about how Jake's spirit affected FNAF's main story going forward, because looking at this story alone, it's very tragic and emotional. Poor Jake and poor Margie. Forever desperate to prove his worth to his arrogant brother and distant father, Toby chases victory at an arcade game, with horrifying consequences. But in the unpredictable world of Five Nights at Freddy's, sometimes the past can take on a life of its own. Hide and Seek, released on December 29th, 2020. Something I enjoy about Hide and Seek is that this is a story about one of the Shadows. Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie are very underrated FNAF characters. This story gives us some time with Shadow Bonnie, a monster created from Toby's rage. Toby is trying to beat this new game at Freddy's, so he can put his name at the #1 spot. Toby's brother has his name at #1 on every other arcade, and boy does he love to brag about it to Toby. Toby has a really annoying brother, and his dad isn't great either. Toby destroys the arcade in rage that he can't beat it, which creates Shadow Bonnie. The game is about Bonnie, which is why the rage monster is a Bonnie. Shadow Bonnie attaches to Toby, replacing his shadow, and Toby tries to rip Shadow Bonnie off his back, peel his back, drown Shadow Bonnie. Nothing works. So Toby returns to Freddy's, plays the arcade again, and stabs himself with pegs, killing himself so Shadow Bonnie will stop bothering him. Not my favorite story, but I enjoy it. Like I said before, I'm just glad we got a story about one of the Shadows. So let's continue. Some things must be learned the hard way. Robert, an exhausted single father, gets a crash course in parenting when he buys a fancy new teddy bear to watch and entertain his young son. But in the malevolent universe of Five Nights at Freddy's, there's always an education in pain. The Cliffs, released on March 2nd, 2021. This story is about a dad named Robert. His wife had died ages ago, and he's taking care of a very young boy named Tyler. Turns out taking care of a 2-year-old and working a full-time job is not easy. Robert tries, but he isn't able to watch Tyler 100% of the time. So he buys Tyler a plush of Freddy Fazbear, a tag-along Freddy. It works as a security camera and watches whatever Tyler does to make sure he stays safe. Except for the part where Tyler gets kidnapped and the police are unable to find him. Robert goes crazy after that. Tag-along Freddy suggests going to the Cliffs. The Cliffs is a spot where people like to jump when they give up on life, so they just end everything. Tag-along Freddy suggests Robert should do that. Robert is desperate for an update on his son, but there are no updates. Police still know nothing. Robert then starts burning Tag-along Freddy, hitting it with his car and more. He is pissed. Eventually, he listens to Tag-along Freddy and goes to the Cliffs to end his life. But at the last second, he throws Tag-along Freddy off the cliffs, and suddenly he finds his son trapped in the cliffs. Turns out Tyler was not kidnapped, he just chased after a dog. Well, phew, this story was a sad one. You could see how much pain Robert was in over not knowing what happened to his son, so it was relieving to know that Tyler was okay after all. This story has a happy ending. The Cliffs is an underrated fright story. Some things must be learned the hard way. Reed sees an opportunity to teach the school bully not to mess with him, but ends up mangling the lesson. But in the malevolent universe of Five Nights at Freddy's, there's always an education in pain. The Breaking Wheel, released on March 2nd, 2021. In this story, Reed is sick of this kid named Julius, who sounds like one of the most ridiculous, immature, half-wit moron, attention-starved, jabbering little prick out there. No wonder the Avengers didn't take him, and they'll take anyone. Seriously though, Julius does sound annoying. He always is whining about things to his teacher or bragging about how he's better than everyone else. So when Julius gets locked in his exoskeleton that he built for robotics and Reed is the only one around to see it, Reed just leaves him like that. What Reed does not think about is the exoskeleton and his friend Pickle's mini-bot are connected. Pickle's brother, his name is Pickle. I'm not making that up. His freaking name is Pickle. Pickle's brother plays with a mini-bot and Julius's exoskeleton moves with it because they are in sync, which causes Julius's body to get mangled inside the exoskeleton. Julius is pissed at Reed, or at least his spirit or agony or something is pissed at Reed, so he comes after him and kills him. The way Julius was described to be all mangled up was horrible, even for a prick like him, although I still don't think the X-Men would take him. Good gore, decent story. Some things must be learned the hard way. Chris, eager to join the science club at school, agrees to undergo a grisly experiment to be accepted. But in the malevolent universe of Five Nights at Freddy's, there's always an education in pain. He Told Me Everything, released on March 2nd, 2021. This is the Fazgoo one. Chris is kind of a weird dude. He's obsessed with stuff like popularity and reputation, so he wants to be in a specific science class at his school, but the people there are pretty cultish. It's run by a weird dude named Mr. Little. Chris makes some friends in the science club. There's one scene I find funny where Chris goes to a coffee shop and he is scared about not knowing coffee, so he tells the barista how inexperienced he is. He gets an iced coffee, kinda made in a similar style to a milkshake. And bro over here got probably one of the best items at the coffee shop, and he's freaking out because it doesn't look like the other coffee drinks or whatever. I don't know why, but the coffee scene is the most memorable part of the whole story for me. More memorable than the part where Chris puts a baby tooth in Fazgoo to go with Mr. Little's experiment, and the Fazgoo attaches itself to his finger, connects to Chris's bladder, and then it pees on the floor. It then sucks the life out of Chris and creates a clone out of him, and it's a really weird story, I'll be honest. Like, it's interesting, but it's very weird. And I find it funny how the first half of the Fazbear Frights is agony and the supernatural, and then the second half is like Fazgoo. Yeah, serious. Here, I'll show you with these next few stories.
No. They're gonna kill me. They're gonna kill me. The fan base. When they find out that I have to delay the game again, they're gonna kill me. They're gonna burn my house down. They're gonna tar and feather me. What am I gonna do? I know. I'll make a game for them. A game where I can help them. A game where I fight with them. That's it. Then I can be the hero. Then they won't kill me. And what would I call the game? Something creative.
Fury's Rage, released on April 28th, 2021. Security Breach had a lot of delays. Originally, it was meant for summer of 2020. Then it got moved to December 2020, then early 2021, then late 2021. Actually, the delays weren't that bad looking back on it now. I mean, we still got the game. I've seen people get irritated or even angry whenever stuff is delayed. Personally, it never bothers me. While yes, I realize I now have to wait longer for this new thing to come out, I also realize that delays happen for a reason, in order to make sure a new product is high quality for all of us. Sometimes it has to be delayed so it can have more time to be worked on. Security Breach was no exception to that, especially when you look at how big that game was. And I mean that literally. Security Breach was probably one of the longest FNAF games we have got, not counting the VR ones. Anyway, while Steelwool was busy with Security Breach, Scott got back into making a game by himself, and he made Fury's Rage. You can play as any of the 4 Glamrock animatronics, Freddy, Chica, Roxy, or Monty. There are 4 different levels: a Midnight Motorist type level, a Burned Down Pizza Sim level, an early Pizzaplex level, and lastly, an underground level. I like the enemies' designs and how this game is mainly the Glamrocks punching people to death. The 4 bosses are the VR Sisters, Soul Brawler, Megabrow, Vanny. Oh, and there's a 5th boss named Dreamgeist. Dreamgeist is wild though. Hardest enemies besides the bosses are these puppet things. A lot of the normal enemies are FNAF AR skins like Radioactive Foxy, Clown Springtrap, Broiler Baby, and Freddy Frostbear. This is just a fun fighting game. I think it made up for the constant Security Breach delays. Although, while people were complaining a lot, it never really bothered me in the first place. Actually, it pissed me off a bit on how whiny the fandom was about the game not being out yet. Things get delayed for a reason. Anyway, that was 3 years ago. Let's move on. A string of bad luck you can't seem to shake. For Angel, it's an all too familiar feeling. Repulsed by her spoiled stepsister's lavish birthday party, Angel exacts a hasty and ill-fated revenge. Gumdrop Angel, released on May 4th, 2021. I told you the second half of the frights were Fazgoo focused, oh my gosh. So Angel has a stepsister who gets everything. Her stepdad favors his actual daughter over Angel. This dude spends a bunch of money on Ophelia's birthday at Freddy's, and then he buys Ophelia a pony. Yeah, but he won't pay for Angel to go to art school, and she doesn't qualify for a scholarship because her stepdad makes bank. In an act of revenge, Angel eats her sister's gumdrop nose. Then she turns into gummy candy. Yeah, these stories are so weird. So Fazbear Entertainment is just giving girls gumdrop noses on their birthdays, which turns the girl into candy. The girls they turn into candy then get eaten alive by more guests. It's an insane cycle. But yeah, it goes to show how evil Fazbear Entertainment truly is. I enjoyed this story. A string of bad luck you can't seem to shake. For Sergio, it's an all too familiar feeling. Sergio acquires a unique novelty toy that instantly brings good luck. But is the toy really leading him to happiness or to a monstrous end? Sergio's Lucky Day, released on May 4th, 2021. Do you like Balloon Boy? Because now he has a fright story. Sergio gets a promotion at his new job, but he isn't really a fan of it. He doesn't really like his girlfriend either. Sergio finds Lucky Boy. He then gets some great advice. Quit the job he hates, leave his girlfriend, pursue a girl he's into, and pursue starting his own business. Sergio listens to Lucky Boy and his life turns around quite a bit. Lucky Boy genuinely has great advice. Until his 10-year senior reunion. Yeah, when Sergio is wondering if his high school crush will be there or not, Sergio asks Lucky Boy for advice, and he's told to just cut random body parts. Maybe even cut some of those random body parts off. Sergio shows up to the reunion bleeding out and his flesh just leaks everywhere, and the story just abruptly ends after that. This story is actually pretty good. I like that it focuses on adult life quite a bit instead of another kid protagonist. Personally, I find the stories where the main protagonist is an adult more interesting than when it's a kid. Not that I have anything against kids, just their motives are not as interesting to me. A string of bad luck you can't seem to shake. For Hudson, it's an all too familiar feeling. Hudson's young life is littered with tragedy and broken dreams. But a well-paying security job might just be all he needs to turn things around. What We Found, released on May 4th, 2021. This story is dark. Hudson's past consists of an abusive stepdad who would absolutely beat Hudson to a pulp, to the point where he needs discs in his wrists because his stepdad broke both of them. Hudson's math teacher constantly belittles him, and one day, in an act to escape his stepdad, Hudson burned his house down. However, while he was never officially caught, everyone knew he did it. Everyone would scold Hudson. Sometimes, if Hudson got close to someone, they would eventually learn about his past and then leave him. Hudson has 2 friends, and his grandma. He doesn't really have anyone in his life after that. Hudson is working at Fazbear's Fright as the security guard, until one day, Springtrap is brought in. Hudson then starts seeing hallucinations of his stepdad, math teacher, Chica, and Springtrap all trying to kill him. Springtrap himself does not do anything because he is nailed to a wall, but Hudson does get hurt by the constant hallucinations, and to save his life, he hides in the oven, but Springtrap turns it on, and Hudson burns alive. Wow, Hudson had such a bad childhood just to grow up and be killed so brutally. Hudson is a good character. His story is pretty sad. I also like how much effort the people put into Fazbear's Fright in the story. Anyway, let's keep going. Consumed by failure, desperate to keep his kiddie pizzeria from bankruptcy, Jack lets his animatronics tech pitch him a new invention that might just give him some perspective. The Puppet Carver, released on July 6, 2021. This story is about a guy named Jack who is trying to keep his knockoff Freddy's featuring the mediocre melodies in business, but it's doing very poorly. Jack is awful to his workers, constantly yelling at them and degrading them, and overall just not being a very pleasant boss. They hardly ever get any customers. Jack is also mean to his wife and his son, and he's just a very angry person in general, until one day, Jack's worker, Porter, creates the Puppet Carver, a machine that creates animatronics out of wood. Porter presents the Puppet Carver to Jack, but the machine breaks and wood flies everywhere, causing everyone to be fired. Then, how the rest of this goes is super confusing, but here's what I gathered. Jack dies inside the Puppet Carver, but his pain, along with his anger and everything else, creates Fazgoo. Yeah, Jack's Fazgoo clone leaves the pizzeria, but the original Jack, who is the goo, hunts down the fake Jack, kills him, and he comes back to life. Makes amends with his wife and his employees, then his pizzeria starts to do well. It's basically the origin of Fazgoo, I guess. Frustrated by an unfair arcade game, Colton throws himself into re-engineering the device at any cost. Jump 4 Tickets, released on July 6, 2021. Okay, so this is about Colton, who is old enough to find a job, and he really wants this gaming console, but instead of finding a job like his mom is saying he should do, and probably making the money he needs within a week or two, nah, his goal is to win a bunch of tickets at Freddy's, not with all the games, but with one specific game that is literally rigged for younger children. This dude chose to solve his problem using the hardest solution possible, and he had a choice. He had a bunch of easier options, but no, he is dedicated to this being the only option for some reason. In fact, it is such a difficult task that it gets to the point where Colton breaks into Freddy's so he can rig the arcade game to be easier for him specifically. Except here's the thing, recently my friend Ollie pointed this out, and now the story seems even more stupid than it already is. Colton is already okay with breaking the law. He broke into Freddy's, but nah, instead of, just stealing the damn console he wants so bad, he is still focused on trying to make sure he can win that ticket game. The console is right there. Just grab it and leave. But no, he has to tamper with the game while Freddy's security system in the story, a clown animatronic named Coils, tries to kick Colton out, but Colton manages to get under the machine where he is trapped and little kids jump on him, feeling something is wrong. An employee jumps and crushes Colton's body. Then Colton's soul possesses Coils, I guess. This story is just dumb. He could have just stolen the console. Whatever. Peyton's best friend goes missing on a tour of the Freddy's Pizza Factory. She knows what really happened, but her guilt isn't the only thing threatening to eat her alive. Pizza Kit, released on July 6, 2021. What I'm about to say is a hot take, but I enjoy Pizza Kit. It's about two friends named Peyton and Marley who go on a tour of Freddy's Pizza Kit factory, and then Marley falls in a pot of tomato sauce and is boiled alive. Peyton is the only one who knows, and she is not telling anyone. Everyone got to design their own pizzas during the field trip and eat the pizza they made. Peyton is convinced Marley's remains are in her pizza, to the point where she comes home after eating it and she feels something moving around inside her. Peyton decides to be rational and she assumes she has a tapeworm. So she takes raw meat and puts it on her tongue to lure the tapeworm out. By the way, if any of you get a tapeworm, do not do this strategy. Just go to a doctor and they'll prescribe you something that'll get rid of the tapeworm. Have I ever mentioned that tapeworms and parasites are one of my biggest fears? Maybe that's why I'm interested in this story. Anyway, Peyton feels the tapeworm crawl up her throat just to find a giant hand reach out of her mouth. Peyton reasonably panics and jumps off her roof. Turns out Peyton was crazy though because Marley was alive the whole time, meaning Peyton made an assumption and either hallucinated like crazy or made a living spiritual entity out of her assumption. I don't know, but the story is creepy, and I think the main reason I like it so much is because it has my biggest fear in it, which is freaking parasites. Now, that was every FNAF release in year 7. I know I brushed over these a lot, but like, what do you want me to say about Phazgoo or Gumdrop Noses or Mpreg or all the— I don't know what you all want me to say, okay? I'm sorry that I rushed through it, but I don't have much to say about a lot of these stories. Anyway, my favorite FNAF release of that year is The Real Jake. The way this one is written is so well, and the ending is so good. Now, thank you all once again for watching. Goodbye, everyone.